We are ready to start our journey, the first part of the day, research infrastructure session. And we're going to start with the Max4 laboratory report. Max4 laboratory is a Sweden national large-scale research infrastructure and the world's first fourth generation synchrotron light source, providing researchers with extremely brilliant X-rays for material science. So really enormously interesting story to share from Max4, and I'm giving the floor to Magnus Larsson, Head of Industrial Relations of Max4 Laboratory Sweden. So Magnus, good morning, how do you feel? And the floor is yours.
Good morning, good morning. Thank you very much for the introduction. Can you hear me?
We can, wonderfully.
Perfect, thank you. So just one thing about the number, it's Max4. We're still on the fourth generation light source. We are not yet on the number 5, but I bet our scientists are really thinking hard about what will the next generation, the 5th generation, look like. But so far it's Max4. And thank you much for that introduction. And let's see if I can get my slideshow working here. Okay, I hope that shows you a nice winter image of Max4 laboratory. So I'm head of industrial relations at Max4, and I'm gonna give you a little bit of an introduction to the field here. And as you heard here, it's the Swedish national large-scale research infrastructure. And we are publicly funded organization, different types of public fundings, also from the Swedish universities. But quite interestingly, we also have some international funding. We have Finnish Estonian investment in one beamline. We also have Danish investments, and we also have private funding from Novo Nordisk Foundation and a large funding from Knut and Alice Wallenberg Foundation. And quite interestingly, also industrial funding from the Swedish forest and paper industry that I will say a few words more about later. But I would like to take these 20 minutes to give a short introduction to Max4 and synchrotron light sources. And I will also, I will not spend so much time in the actual science because we have a lot of good speakers later today that will give you good examples of what type of science you can do. But I will say a little bit more about how do you access these facilities, what are the access modes, how do industry access these facilities, and spend a little bit more time on that side since I'm working at the industry office. So what is Max4? You can simplify it as saying it's a collection of advanced analytical tools, all based on X-rays, and they're collected in this big facility. But the instruments are nothing without the people, and I think the really key thing is that we are a user facility. So we have a lot of great scientists working at the facility, providing good science, but the facility is not built for them. It's built for you, the research community, and once we're completely up and running and fully equipped, we will have more than 2,000 users passing through every year. And we have this organization set up to make sure that all these users can pass through this organization. So the dynamics is that you as a scientist working in most cases and at a university or an institute, preparing this experiment over quite some time, and then you have a time slot for a day or a week performing your experiments, and then you go back to your institution or your company for that matter, and continue working with all the research data that you gather. And from our point of view, we have the next user that we need to support and take care of. So that we all are user facilities is really key to what we are. Just a few things about Max4. We are located in Lund in South Sweden, and we're not alone in this part of Lund, even though it's a greenfield area here. We have our neighbor, European Spallation Source, being built, and the Science Village area in between. And if we look from the other side, it's easier to see, and it's a little bit more updated photo I see as well. So the European Spallation Source being built, Max4 here, and the city of Lund, and in 10-15 minutes away, city of Malmö, and then the bridge across to Copenhagen Airport and the city of Copenhagen. So we're located in an easy accessible area of the southern parts of Sweden. And a few things about Max4 and ESS. So Max4, we're working with X-rays, so light as our probe to look at matter. We're a Swedish facility with a history for more than 30 years. So there was, of course, a Max 1, 2, and 3 before. And we opened up our new facility here in 2016. And X-rays interact very well with the electron cloud, you can say. And ESS, our neighbor, it's a Neutron facility. It's a spallation source that is being built. 13 European member states with hosting from Sweden and Denmark. We've been building that for quite some time, but the science is starting end of 2023. And as you will hear more about, the neutrons interact very well with the nuclei of the atom and gives a completely different picture. And in combination, you can do amazing materials science. But going back to X-rays, it's of course started with Wilhelm Röntgen getting the Nobel Prize, more or less from Nobel Prize in Physics, actually the first Nobel Prize in Physics, more or less from this photo that is supposedly his wife's hand. You can see the wedding ring, using the state-of-the-art equipment, high voltage generation, accelerating electrons onto a target and generating these invisible X-rays, hitting a sample and then a detector. And that's also how we build our facilities, but we don't want this light bulb kind of widespread X-rays. We want this really almost laser-like focused X-rays. And that's why we build the facilities the way we do. So Max4 is built with a linear accelerator, bringing up electrons to close the speed of light. And then we're sending them into, in our case, in 2 storage rings. And around these rings, we have these sections where we force the electrons to leave some of their energy in the form of light. And that light comes out in the tangent. And because we built these ring-shaped storage rings, we can have several of these stations operating in parallel all around these rings, providing X-rays for material science. And if we just dive into Max4, we have today 10 beamlines in operation. We have 6 more coming online over the coming 2 years, starting with this spring. And we have space for more. So over the 10 years, over the coming years, we will increase with 10 more beamlines. And if we just want to say something really roughly, what type of experiments that can take place at the synchrotron light facility, we have different type of spectroscopical techniques where you can get chemical, electrical, and magnetical information from your sample. We have different scattering techniques where you can get structural information all the way from atomic structure up to through nano regime up to microstructures, and then you can combine different type of signals and get all these different imaging techniques based on the signals you get out, also tomographic imaging. And I believe we will see some good examples of what type of science that we can get out of this later on. So I would like to say something about the different access modes. How do you get access to these type of facilities? And starting with the most common access mode, which is the open peer review access or general access, where we have at Max4, we have open calls twice per year. You can look at our website, and there are these websites where you can find when are the open calls, for example, Wave for Light or light sources. And I believe the Neutron's facilities also have these websites where you can find more information. Otherwise, you can just come to the website of your facility. You send in an application to write a proposal describing the scientific gains that you hope of this experiment and how you will perform this experiment. And then we have an independent international panel ranking these proposals on scientific merit. And we will get this ranking back, and we will award beam time to all the proposals, starting from the top all the way until we don't have more beam time that proposal round. And this beam time is for free, and the way you pay back to society is that you publish your results in the end. You don't publish immediately, but of course you work with your data, and over the coming years you publish your results. Working with industry, we also have another access mode, we call proprietary access, where you can get access in a different route if you're coming from a company. And here we have a little bit shorter term and faster access. So we have these set up regular slots over the year where you can get beam time, or you can set up a framework agreement and have regular access over a long time. And this access is within a confidentiality agreement, and we charge fees for beam time and services, and all the results belong to you as a company, and you do not need to publish anything. And these are sort of the two main access routes that we're working with at Max4. But I would like to say a little bit about before you come to the facility, there are things, of course, you need to think through, and it goes for everyone, but in particular for industrial users, that you also need to consider in when you're going to perform your experiment. So this is a bit of a puzzle. You have a challenge of some sort, and you would like to move on with a solution, or you would like to test your hypothesis, and you know that the method is somewhere at through an experiment at a facility like this. But of course, before you come here, you need to transform that question into an experiment and finding the right method. Sometimes you also need to develop a new experimental environment. Maybe you need to rotate your sample and pull at it at the liquid nitrogen temperature at the same time. And that is something that is maybe not available at the place where you want to perform your experiment. And on the other end, after your experiment, you end up with sometimes a lot of data, and you need to work with your data, a lot of analysis and modeling. And these two pieces of the puzzle is something that you really need to take into account and consider, and they're also quite labor-intense part of your experiment. So a good way to approach one of these facilities is to do that together with someone who has this experience, who can help you with the way before and also the time after. And now I would like to say something that is especially for industry, and how you as a company can come and use the facility. And there are different routes into Max4. We have some companies, we call them advanced users, companies that have the in-house know-how of how to use the techniques at the facility, and they can just come directly to facility, buy beam time, and take care of the data and do the analysis themselves. And some of them are even using the open access route and publishing the results later on. But most companies are not in that situation. They need some sort of support, and there are a number of support organizations To give you some what we call mediated access, there are research institutes, there are mediator companies, and there are projects like Links project that we'll hear more about later today that can support companies with their access. We also have some support at the facility and the industry office. You can contact us. But really the big access mode is to come with an academic collaboration. So industry in academic collaboration applying for beam time, and that is really a good way to start getting access to these tools for companies. And there's also last, or maybe not last, but there's one alternative that you can make an investment. And this is something that I would just like to say a few words about. The Swedish forest industry that made a strategic investment into Max4 and built one of their beamlines of their own. So the forest industry, together with, I can show this slide instead, several Swedish universities, big companies, the research institutes have gone together and backed through both the Innovation Agency and most notably Knut and Alice Wallenberg Foundation to build and operate this type of dedicated beamline at Max4 to really match the needs of that industry segment. And TreeSearch is this large research platform, and within that they have research infrastructure and infrastructure investments such as this one. And this sort of triggered us to start to work with industry in this clustered way where academia, institute, industry are working together and reaching out to these facilities. And we are working on a setup for the metal industry. We call metal beams, running workshops and symposia and helping and supporting the industry to get access to these facilities. And we also launched a program for the food and packaging industry called Northern Lights on Food that are now applying for funding to set up a research center. And this is a Nordic center that's being set up, but aiming to a larger European reach out. And at the industry office, we have, together with Max4 and ESS, together with Science Village and RISE Institute, set up a website now called Max's Industry Arena, available at maxs.se, where companies can find their collaboration partner and resources to get an easier access to these facilities in different ways. And I would like to round off there and conclude that these facilities are open for you to use. And I would like to join in with Hella's recommendation to take this opportunity now and use this week of networking and getting connected to researchers and start to approach and start figuring out how to use these facilities for your research and development. And also, if you're from a company and you would like to have confidential access, then you just reach out to the industry offices at these facilities. And with that, I would like to say thank you.
Thank you, Magnus, very much. And I'm totally happy that I upgraded Max4 to Max5 at the beginning. So it's just looking into the future. Yeah. We have a couple of questions, in fact, and one of the questions is, what is the waiting list if you want to approach a laboratory? So how busy it is, taking into considerations this peer-reviewed access and also the private access?
Yeah, so all these facilities are always full. There's always more users than facilities, but we have this dynamic so that you can apply twice per year. So we have these 6 months between each application for the open access, and then there's the reviewing time and then you will get your time. So between 6 and 9 months usually from your application time. When it comes to proprietary access, paid access, it depends on what beamline, but usually within a month you will be able to get access, and it can be even faster than that. But usually there are the practicalities that takes a bit longer. We have these standard agreements that ready to sign, but maybe your legal department would like to go through it, and then it still takes a little bit of time. So we run that in parallel, but within a month.
Within a month. We have also a question from industry considering those practicalities, and the question is, what is the approximate hourly cost of the proprietary access to the different beamlines?
So they're about between, say, 550 and 800 euro per hour if you talk about the European facilities. And in Max4 in specific, it's 6,500 Swedish krona per hour, which is roughly 650 euro per hour.
Thank you very much. And then we have the third question about cooperation in between laboratory and Latvia, Lithuania, Estonia. How could you evaluate this kind of experience until this?
I mean, it's an intense collaboration. I think we even had an Estonian director. We have a strong collaboration between the countries. But me personally, I know a bit too little to rate that in any way.
That was an elegant way to answer that, knowing a bit too little. Thank you. Thank you very much, Magnus, for your presentation.